Keep resisting, and I will make sure you leave this courthouse on a stretcher." Arthur Whitmore stood close enough for Imani Parker to feel his breath against her cheek. Behind him, Chief Bailiff Derrick Coleman locked one hand around her wrist and reached for the work bag hanging from her shoulder. "I asked for an attorney." "You asked the wrong person." Arthur glanced at Derrick. "Left pocket." Derrick twisted Imani's arm behind her back, drove her shoulder into the courthouse wall, and tore open the pocket Arthur had named. His hand emerged with a thick brown envelope wrapped in red evidence tape. Arthur had silenced her request for counsel, ordered force against her, and told his bailiff exactly where the missing cash would be found. He had framed the one woman in the courthouse who had already preserved the untouched record. Derrick raised the envelope beneath the fluorescent light. A black evidence number covered the front. The initials on the seal belonged to a narcotics officer whose old case file had disappeared from the clerk's system that morning. "You stole money from a secured evidence room," Arthur said. "Now you are going to tell me who sent you." Imani turned her face just far enough to study the envelope. "The seal is upside down." Derrick pulled her arm higher. "What did you say?" "Whoever reopened that envelope replaced the tape incorrectly." Arthur's eyes moved to the seal for less than a second. Imani saw it. "Cuff her," he ordered. Derrick snapped the metal around her wrist so tightly that its edge cut into her skin. "Record the time," Imani said. "You do not give instructions here." "Then answer one question. How did he know which pocket to search?" The corridor went still. Derrick shoved her face back against the wall. Arthur did not answer. "Would you expose the lie immediately or stay silent long enough to identify everyone involved? Tell us in the comments." At 8:40 that morning, Imani Parker had entered the Bellweather County courthouse wearing a temporary identification badge. Her work order described her as a records contractor assigned to review digitized evidence transfers. At 8:53, Derrick found the missing cash in the exact pocket Arthur had identified. By 9 a.m., the courthouse had created an official story. Imani had used her temporary access to enter a restricted evidence corridor. She had taken money from a narcotics file and hidden it in her bag. Derrick had discovered the theft before she could leave. The story moved faster than the truth because Arthur controlled the people responsible for recording it. Derrick marched her through the public lobby with her hands cuffed behind her back. Employees stopped speaking as she passed. Heather Lawson, the chief court clerk, stood beside the security desk holding a stack of blank forms. "The access report," Arthur told her. "Print it. The system has not completed its morning synchronization." "Then print what it has." Heather glanced at Imani. Imani held her gaze. Heather looked away first. Derrick jerked the cuffs upward, sending pain across Imani's shoulders. A reporter and photographer were waiting beside the elevator. Neither had been in the building 10 minutes earlier. "Miss Parker, did you steal money from a criminal prosecution? Were you paid to remove evidence?" Derrick pulled her toward the cameras. When she slowed, he kicked the back of her knee. Imani struck the marble floor. The skin beneath one palm split open. The camera shutter fired repeatedly. Derrick leaned down as though he were helping her stand. "Now they have the picture they need," he whispered. Imani rose without answering. The information screen above the elevator displayed 9:03. The reporter had arrived within minutes of the search. Someone had contacted the press before an incident report could have been written. In the basement booking room, Derrick removed Imani's temporary badge and sealed it inside a property bag. "You were allowed into this courthouse to serve the county," he said. "Instead, you embarrassed a good judge." Imani studied the room. One camera above the entrance, another over the fingerprint station. A narrow blind area beside the storage lockers. Derrick followed her eyes. He pulled her into that blind area. "You think cameras protect you?" "I think you moved me where they cannot see you." His fist struck beneath her ribs. The blow was controlled. It stole her breath without leaving an immediate mark. Imani bent forward, and Derrick caught the back of her neck. "You reached for my weapon during the search," he said. "That is what my report will say if you cause another problem." Imani forced herself upright. "You have already written it." His grip tightened. On the property table, the evidence envelope was gone. Derrick released her and ordered a deputy to begin fingerprinting. Imani placed her fingers on the scanner without resistance. She did not demand the envelope. She did not ask where it had been taken. Her restraint troubled Derrick more than anger would have. Outside the room, Arthur spoke to Heather in a lowered voice. "The access record needs to show her badge before 8:40. It does not show that now. It will. The system stores revisions. That is why Jasper is coming downstairs." A few minutes later, Heather entered carrying a printed report. "This confirms that your badge opened the evidence corridor at 8:32. Imani looked at the page but did not touch it. "The corridor or the vault?" "The report speaks for itself." "No, you just spoke for it." Heather placed a pen on the table. "Sign to acknowledge that you received the report." Imani read the header and footer. The header identified Sentinel Access Suite, version 6. The report template belonged to version 8. "I will not sign it. It is not a confession. It is not an original report either." Heather froze. Imani tapped the footer. "This template did not exist when the entry was supposedly generated." Heather snatched the page away. Fear replaced irritation on her face. Imani had not accused her directly. She had simply demonstrated that the alteration could be found. Heather hurried into the hallway. "She knows the software versions," she told Arthur. Arthur looked through the window in the door. Imani sat alone, her injured hand folded over the other. "She is a records contractor." She knew the template was wrong. "Then give her less to read." Arthur entered and placed both palms on the table. "You will remain in custody while the district attorney prepares charges." "On whose order?" "Mine. You witnessed the search. I oversee courthouse security. You directed the search." His jaw tightened. "You are trying to turn procedure into a weapon." "I am asking which procedure allows the witness who ordered a search to control the detention, the kind that protects the public. Then why did your office call a reporter before Derrick found the envelope?" Arthur's face remained still. Heather's did not. Imani had seen the media office number reflected in the reporter's phone upstairs. The outgoing call had been placed at 8:51, 2 minutes before Derrick opened the pocket. Arthur straightened. "Take her to holding." Derrick entered immediately, as though he had been waiting for the command. The temporary holding area contained 3 concrete cells. Derrick placed Imani alone in the center one. While removing her cuffs, he pulled her arm through the food slot and pinned her wrist against its metal edge. "You like details?" he asked. "Remember this." He slammed the slot against her forearm. Pain shot toward her elbow. The cuff caught against the opening and prevented her from pulling free. "Say you resisted." "I did not." Louder. "I did not resist." The corridor camera captured her words while his hand remained on the restraint. Derrick released the slot. He had wanted panic or anger. Instead, Imani had created a record. Arthur delayed her first appearance until late afternoon. The assigned judge was suddenly unavailable. A replacement would not arrive until the next morning. Assistant District Attorney Audrey Bennett came to the cell carrying a thin file. "You have one opportunity to control the damage." Imani remained seated. Audrey opened the file. "The state can charge theft, tampering with evidence, and unlawful entry. Chief Coleman is also considering obstruction." "Considering?" "He says you pulled away during the search. The corridor footage will show what happened." The camera stopped recording. "When?" Audrey checked a page. 8:47. "Before the search." "That is what the report says." "Who wrote the report?" Audrey closed the folder. "You are not in a position to question me." "Then do not bring me answers you have not checked." Audrey stepped closer to the glass. "Sign a statement admitting you took the envelope, The state will recommend probation. The money was found less than an hour ago. We are attempting to resolve this efficiently. You prepared probation terms in less than an hour? Audrey's fingers tightened around the file. Beneath her thumb was a print timestamp, 8:36. The plea form had been created 17 minutes before Derrick claimed to discover the envelope. Imani said nothing about it. Not yet. I want counsel. The offer expires when the public defender arrives. After Audrey left, Imani closed her eyes and rebuilt the morning in sequence. 8:36, confession printed. 8:47, corridor camera disabled. 8:51, reporter contacted. 8:53, envelope found. The frame had begun before the search. That meant Arthur had discovered what she was reviewing and moved before she could retrieve the final records. 2 floors above, Heather entered the archive room and removed an old transfer ledger from a locked cabinet. 7 pages carried yellow markers. Each page documented seized cash that had been moved into a private compliance account before the associated criminal case closed. Imani had marked them the previous afternoon. Heather fed the first page into a shredder. The machine stopped halfway through the second. A strip remained visible above the blades. Imani's handwritten note appeared along one edge. Original requested from off-site archive. Heather stared at the words, then called Arthur. I found what she was reviewing. How many transfers? 7. Remove the pages. The originals may already be outside the building. Arthur was silent for 3 seconds. Find Jasper. By noon, the courthouse had begun rewriting Imani's life. Her contractor profile disappeared from the county system. A personnel note appeared in its place, claiming that she had once been dismissed from government work for unauthorized access. A local news site published her booking photograph beneath a headline accusing her of stealing drug evidence. The article claimed she had been under investigation for weeks. That lie created another vulnerability. If she had been monitored for weeks, the courthouse would need surveillance records. If those records did not exist, someone would have to manufacture them. Micah Turner arrived shortly after 1 p.m., carrying a worn leather case. His expression suggested that someone had already advised him not to fight too hard. Derrick stopped him outside the holding area. You have 15 minutes. I have as much time as my client requires. You have 15. Micah raised his appointment order. This contains no time restriction. Derrick slapped the paper from his hand. It drifted to the floor. Micah looked at it, then at Derrick. Pick it up. You dropped it. You struck it from my hand. Derrick shoved him against the wall. Inside the cell, Imani stood. Camera above the exit, she called. Red indicator, audio active. Derrick looked up. The light was red. He released Micah. You have 10 minutes now. Micah retrieved the order and entered the cell. You just cost us 5 minutes, he said. No, he cost himself a denial he cannot use later. Micah sat across from her and opened his notebook. What happened? Request the native access log. I have the printed report. Do not rely on it. What do you mean by native? The raw audit file, revision history, credential mapping, server time offset, and export metadata. Micah stopped writing. You convert records for the county. That is what my badge says. What did you do before that? Request the file. He studied her. The district attorney says your badge opened the evidence corridor. The paper says that. You believe it was altered. The footer came from a software version the courthouse does not operate. Micah examined the report. That proves the template is wrong. It does not prove the entry is false. Ask for the printer's internal job history. The printer? The first plea offer was printed before the search. The device log may show which workstation created it. Micah looked at her injured wrist. Did Derrick do that? Yes. Where? The food slot. The camera recorded him ordering me to say I resisted. What did you say? That I did not. Micah closed his notebook. I need to know whether I am representing a contractor, an investigator, or someone involved in an operation I have not been told about. You are representing a woman accused with documents created before the alleged crime. That was not my question. It is the answer you can use. A buzzer sounded. Derrick opened the door. Time. Micah stood. I am filing requests to preserve the camera footage, raw access data, printer history, and all communications concerning the envelope. File whatever you want. I will also request an independent medical examination. Derrick blocked the doorway. You should be careful about accusing officers. I did not accuse anyone. You assumed the examination concerned you. Derrick's expression tightened. Imani stepped closer to the bars. His appointment order is still on the floor outside. The camera will show exactly when you interfered with counsel. Derrick moved aside. Micah left knowing that he had not been assigned an ordinary theft case. By mid-afternoon, Jasper Reed, the county technology director, had opened the courthouse security server. Heather stood behind him. Can you remove one badge entry? Not cleanly. Arthur says you can. Arthur does not understand the system. Jasper changed the credential number associated with the evidence corridor. Now it shows her badge? Heather asked. On the local report. What does that mean? It means the local report shows her badge. Heather lowered her voice. Where else would it show? Jasper opened a diagnostic window. The system automatically transmitted error archives to its outside vendor. A package had been sent at 8:49, 4 minutes before the envelope was found. It contained the original access table. Jasper closed the window. Somewhere we do not control. Delete it. It is not here. Call the vendor. If I ask them to remove it, they will preserve it. Heather stepped closer. Find another way. Jasper noticed a strip of shredded paper clinging to her sleeve. What did you destroy? Do your job. You are asking me to falsify a security record while a woman is being held. You already changed it. Jasper looked back at the screen. The distinction had arrived too late. Micah filed an emergency preservation motion. Arthur denied it without a hearing. Micah then filed another copy at the public intake counter, forcing it into the docket. Heather removed it 7 minutes later. The deletion left a numbering gap. That afternoon, Audrey returned to Imani with a revised agreement. This is your last chance. The first last chance expired. You plead to misdemeanor interference with government property. The theft count remains pending and will be dismissed after restitution. Restitution for money still inside the courthouse? Audrey pushed the agreement through the slot. A new paragraph claimed that Imani had used another employee's credential to enter the evidence corridor. The access report claimed her own badge had opened it. Arthur's team was no longer maintaining one lie. They were producing several, and trusting speed to conceal the differences. Your report says my badge opened the door, Imani said. New information developed. From whom? Chief Coleman. He first said he saw me near the vault. Now he says I used someone else's credential. He clarified his statement. Which version did he sign? Audrey pulled the agreement back. You think contradictions will save you? I think they will identify who spoke to him between drafts. Audrey struck the glass with her palm. You are facing years in prison. Imani did not flinch. Audrey's anger faded, revealing exhaustion beneath it. What did you find in those transfer ledgers? The question came too quickly. Imani studied her. Audrey knew about the missing money. I found 7 deposits moved before their cases closed. Audrey's lips parted. She had expected another number. How many did you think there were? Imani asked. Audrey stepped away. You should take the offer. She left without collecting the unsigned document. For nearly 40 minutes, no one approached Imani's cell. The quiet meant decisions were being made elsewhere. Arthur had summoned Heather, Jasper, Audrey, and Derrick to his chambers. This is no longer about the envelope, Arthur told them. She was searching sealed transfer records. Her lawyer requested the native logs, Jasper said. Deny that they exist. They exist. Then say they are corrupted. The vendor has an archive. Arthur looked at Heather. You told me the system was local. Routine records are local, Jasper said. Diagnostic archives are automatic. Derrick folded his arms. Let me speak to her alone. You already did, Audrey replied. She documented the injury. Derrick turned on her. She is in a cell because I put her there. Remember which side you are on. Arthur moved closer to Jasper. We need one consistent record. There are already several statements. Then write another that explains them. That is not how audit systems work. Arthur slapped him. The sound cracked through the office. Heather looked toward the door. Audrey went still. Derrick showed no surprise. A red mark spread across Jasper's cheek. What do you want the report to say? He asked. That the system cannot preserve historical revisions. That is false. Arthur stepped closer. What do you want the report to say? Jasper lowered his eyes. The system cannot preserve historical revisions. Arthur turned toward Heather. Remove every request Parker made this week. One request went outside the county. Where? The destination is secure. When was it sent? Yesterday afternoon. Audrey spoke quietly. What format did it use? Heather swallowed. A federal preservation format. No one moved. Bray looked at the ledger on his desk. A contractor would not use that. Jasper touched his bruised face. Maybe she is not a contractor. Arthur issued new orders. Heather would erase Imani's outgoing requests. Jasper would certify that historical changes could not be recovered. Derrick would accuse Imani of attempting to enter Arthur's sealed files. Audrey would present the new allegation at the morning hearing. At 6:10 p.m., Micah returned carrying docket copies. Derrick blocked him. Visiting hours are over. She is my client. You can return tomorrow. Micah raised an emergency access order obtained from another judge. Derrick grabbed it. Micah held on. Derrick drove his forearm into Micah's chest and slammed him against the steel door. Micah's head struck the frame. Imani heard the impact. Stop! Derrick pulled back one fist. The camera is not recording, he said. Micah glanced toward the dark indicator above him. Then a small red light appeared on his briefcase. A legal documentation camera was clipped beside the handle. Derrick saw it, his fist lowered. You cannot record in a secure area. You just told me the courthouse camera was disabled. I am preserving attorney safety. Derrick released him. Micah entered with a bruise forming near his temple. My preservation motion disappeared from the docket, he said. It was deleted at the clerk level. How can you know? A judicial denial remains visible. A clerk deletion creates a numbering gap. Micah placed the docket pages between them. Entry 41 was followed by entry 43. The district attorney added another accusation, he said. They claim you attempted to access sealed judicial files. What phrase did they use? Unauthorized entry into restricted administrative material. Imani shook her head. That is not the final language. What do you mean? Arthur repeats the same phrasing when he wants ordinary conduct to sound technical. What phrase? Unauthorized administrative intrusion. Micah stared at her. You are predicting an affidavit that has not been filed. I am predicting its author. Why? Because Derrick does not know what administrative intrusion means. Micah nearly smiled, then remembered where they were. The access vendor also contacted me. Someone requested preservation before your arrest. The request used a secure federal routing code. He waited. Imani said nothing. Was it you? Ask the vendor for the archive transmission time. You already know it. Ask anyway. What are you hiding from me? The part that keeps you safer if you do not know. The cell lights flashed. Derrick appeared with two deputies. Meeting over. Imani touched the docket gap. File the motion again. Send copies outside Bellweather County. To whom? The State Defender Administration and Judicial Oversight Intake. Micah gathered his papers. I will see you at the hearing. Bring the printer history. They may refuse. They will give you something. The wrong thing may be more useful. Near midnight, Heather attempted to delete Imani's last outgoing request. A warning appeared. Remote preservation active. She called Jasper. The file will not delete. It has been locked externally. You changed the access log. Change this. That was local. Arthur will blame us. He should. Heather ended the call. Upstairs, Arthur reviewed Derrick's draft affidavit. This is weak. It says she entered your files. It needs intent. Arthur rewrote the central paragraph himself. He accused Imani of unauthorized administrative intrusion designed to compromise sealed judicial material. Derrick signed beneath the words. The next morning, Audrey handed the affidavit to Micah outside the courtroom. He read the phrase Imani had predicted. Unauthorized administrative intrusion. Behind the holding room glass, Imani watched his expression change. Arthur entered through the private door. Derrick followed with the evidence envelope inside a clear bag. Heather sat at the clerk station. Jasper waited in the gallery holding a report that denied the existence of recoverable revisions. Every person required to support the frame was in one room. Arthur took the bench. This hearing concerns a contractor who abused public trust and attempted to compromise the administration of justice. Micah stood. The defense requests the native audit file, printer job history, corridor footage, and the off-site archive. Denied. The archive has already been preserved. Heather's hand stopped above the keyboard. Arthur turned toward Micah. By whom? That is what we intend to determine. Arthur studied Imani. You entered this courthouse under false pretenses. That accusation is not in your affidavit. It will be. You should allow someone else to draft it. A murmur moved through the room. Arthur struck the bench. You will speak only when addressed. Imani lowered her eyes. Before she did, she saw Jasper press one hand against the inside of his coat. A small storage device was hidden there. Heather noticed it too. A courthouse employee hurried through the side door and whispered to her. Color drained from Heather's face. What is it? Arthur demanded. The vendor confirmed the preservation request. When was it sent? Heather looked at Imani. Yesterday, before her arrest. Silence spread across the courtroom. For the first time, Arthur was not looking at a prisoner. He was looking at a question he could not control. At this point, would you trust Imani's silence or demand that she reveal who she really is? Write your answer below. Before her arrest? Arthur repeated. Heather read from the confirmation. The vendor received it at 4:12 yesterday afternoon. Who sent it? They will not identify the sender without authorization. I am the authorization. They said it came through a secure federal channel. Audrey stopped arranging her files. Jasper pressed his coat tighter. Derrick looked at Imani as though the restraints around her were suddenly inadequate. Bring me the confirmation, Arthur ordered. Heather carried it toward the bench. Micah stepped into the aisle. That document concerns evidence requested by the defense. It concerns courthouse administration. It concerns an archive that may prove my client's access report was falsified. Arthur's stare sharpened. You are dangerously close to accusing this court of criminal conduct. I requested an original file. Sit down. Micah remained standing. Derrick grabbed his arm and drove him against the counsel table. Papers scattered across the floor. Audrey rose. That is unnecessary. Arthur struck the bench. Control your conduct, Ms. Bennett. My conduct? You spoke without permission. Derrick twisted Micah's arm higher. Imani stepped forward. The chain around her ankles snapped tight. The archive exists. Arthur turned toward her. The original access table was transmitted at 8:49, she continued. 4 minutes before the envelope appeared in my bag. Jasper's head lifted. Arthur's voice became quieter. How could you know the transmission time? The same way you knew which pocket Derrick should search. For 1 second, Arthur had no answer. Then he pointed toward the side door. Remove her. Derrick dragged Imani into a concrete stairwell beyond the holding cells. 2 deputies remained outside the fire door. There were no cameras inside. He shoved her against the railing. Who sent the preservation request? I requested the archive. That is not what I asked. He struck her across the face. Her head snapped toward the wall. Blood filled her mouth. Derrick grabbed her jaw. Federal routing, vendor archives, printer history. You came prepared. You came prepared too. Who are you working for? The county hired me. The county hired a woman who knew which records to pull and which words the judge would use before he wrote them? That sounds like a problem with the judge. Derrick drove her against the rail. You are going to give me a name. He drew back his fist. Imani stepped inside the swing. Her cuffs limited her movement, but she turned enough to let his forearm pass across her shoulder. His momentum carried him into the railing. You assaulted an officer, he said. You missed a restrained prisoner. He lunged and closed one hand around her throat. Say you attacked me. Imani looked beyond him. A narrow window had been built into the fire door. One of the deputies was watching. Derrick followed her gaze. The deputy stepped away. Derrick released her throat and punched her in the stomach. By tonight, your lawyer will be under investigation. By tomorrow, the state will have another charge. By next week, no one will remember why you entered this building. Imani straightened slowly. You are speaking as though the first charge has already failed. His hand moved toward the fire alarm panel. Each opening of the secure stairwell created an electronic time record. Imani saw him understand that even a camera-free room had a log. Now you need to erase the fire system too, she said. He dragged her back into the corridor. Arthur waited in his chambers with Heather and Jasper. Call the vendor again, he ordered. They refused to release the hold. Tell them the request was fraudulent. Only the originating agency can withdraw it. Arthur looked at Jasper. Can you block the transfer? It already happened. Can you alter the archive? Not from here. Can you access the vendor's server? Not lawfully. Heather spoke before she could stop herself. Nothing about this morning is lawful. Arthur turned toward her. She quickly added, the contractor had evidence cache in her bag. We are responding to a security incident. That is exactly what happened. Jasper remained silent. Arthur noticed. What is inside your coat? Nothing. Empty your pockets. Jasper removed his phone, wallet, and keys. He left the storage device hidden. Arthur held out his hand. The inside pocket. Derrick entered. She will not give us a name. Arthur noticed the red mark on Derrick's chest where he had struck the railing. What happened? She attacked me. While cuffed? Derrick did not answer. Arthur pointed toward Jasper. Search him. Jasper stepped back. I changed records because you ordered me to. I will not be searched like a prisoner. Derrick grabbed his jacket. Jasper pushed him away. Derrick punched him in the side of the head. Jasper fell against a cabinet. Audrey entered as Derrick raised his fist again. Enough. If you strike him in front of 3 witnesses, she continued, I cannot make it disappear. Arthur looked at her. You seem concerned about what can disappear. I am concerned about what can be used against us. The word us remained in the room. Arthur smiled. Then we agree. Jasper removed a black storage device and placed it on the desk. Arthur handed it to Heather. Destroy it. Neither Jasper nor Heather said that it was a decoy. The real copy was hidden inside Jasper's car key. When the hearing resumed, Imani returned with swelling along one cheek. Micah saw it. Who did that? She fell in the stairwell, Derrick said. Micah looked toward the deputies. Did either of you see her fall? Neither answered. Arthur announced that the federal routing language appeared to be part of a routine data retention service. Who provided that explanation? Micah asked. The court is not required to identify its technical advisors. You witnessed the search and directed the bailiff toward a specific pocket. You cannot continue deciding her detention. Arthur gripped the bench. Are you accusing me of planting evidence? I am requesting an independent judge. This is my courthouse. That is the problem. Derrick moved toward him. Arthur raised one hand. Let counsel finish. Micah knew the invitation was a trap. The plea form was printed before the alleged theft. The camera failed before the search. A reporter was contacted before the envelope was found. The access report uses the wrong software template. The original data went to an outside vendor, and someone deleted my preservation motion from the docket. Do you have admissible evidence? I will when the court stops destroying it. Derrick seized Micah and threw him against the gallery rail. Imani rose. Do not touch him. The command in her voice stopped Derrick for a fraction of a second. Arthur noticed. Restrain the defendant. Two deputies pinned Imani against the table. Derrick forced Micah to the floor and pressed a knee between his shoulders. Audrey stood. This hearing must stop. Arthur pointed at her. Sit down. You are creating another incident in open court. Your employment depends on whether you understand a direct order. Audrey looked at Heather, Jasper, Micah, and Imani. Then she sat. Arthur ordered Imani transferred to the county jail and directed Heather to seal the transcript. Before finalizing the order, Heather wrote the transcript number on the inside of her wrist. The transport van had no rear camera. Derrick drove while two deputies sat across from Imani. Her wrists were chained to a waist belt. Her ankles were secured beneath the bench. One deputy wore the name Allen. He was the man who had looked through the stairwell window. Derrick took a turn too quickly. Imani slid across the bench and struck the metal wall. Allen reached to steady her, then stopped when Derrick looked in the mirror. Do not help her, Derrick said. She could hit her head. Then write that she became combative. Allen looked at the bruising on Imani's throat. I did not see her attack you. The van slowed. Derrick's eyes appeared in the mirror. What did you say? I saw your hand around her throat. Derrick pulled onto the shoulder, opened the rear doors, and climbed inside. Allen stood. Derrick struck him across the mouth. Allen fell against the bench. You will correct your memory. Derrick hit him again. Imani hooked one shoe beneath a loose transport strap. When Derrick drew back for another blow, she pulled. The strap tightened around his ankle. He lost his balance and struck the door phase. You did that. The van moved. A car behind them sounded its horn. Other drivers slowed to look at the open transport vehicle. Derrick lowered his raised hand. Allen wiped blood from his lip and returned to the bench. He no longer looked frightened. He looked decided. At the county jail, Nurse Kelly Price documented Imani's injuries. Derrick remained in the examination room. The bruises occurred during transport, he said. Kelly photographed the mark on Imani's throat. That does not look like a transport injury. She fought officers. Kelly looked at Imani. Did you fight anyone? No. Derrick stepped closer. You are not conducting an investigation. I am completing an intake examination. You will write that she resisted. I will write what I observe. He reached for the medical camera. Kelly pulled it away and uploaded the photographs. Where did those go? He asked. The regional medical server. Delete them. I cannot. You mean you will not? I mean the system copied them when I pressed save. Another record had escaped Bellweather County. Derrick leaned toward her. People lose county jobs every day. Kelly closed the chart. Then you should be careful. After he left, she cleaned the cut around Imani's wrist. What did you do to make them this afraid? I asked where seized money went. Kelly stopped. My brother paid into one of those court programs. He missed an appointment after an injury. They extended his probation and sent him back to jail. Do you have the receipts? My mother kept everything. Do not bring them here. Where should they go? Imani gave her Micah's office address. Back at the courthouse, Heather placed the broken decoy drive on Arthur's desk. It is destroyed. Where is Jasper? He left for medical treatment. I did not release him. Audrey stood near the window, holding the unsigned plea. You cannot keep treating employees like prisoners. Arthur turned toward her. You cannot speak as though you are outside this. I did not know the money would be planted. You knew enough to prepare the plea. You told me there would be an arrest involving stolen evidence. And you prepared the documents. At 8:36, before the search. You worked efficiently. The evidence did not exist yet. Arthur moved closer. You spent 6 years asking me which cases to charge and which defendants deserved another chance. Do not pretend you became independent today. I believe the evidence existed. It does. You saw the envelope. I also saw Derrick assault defense counsel. Then charge the lawyer before he files a complaint. For what? You are the prosecutor. Find something. Audrey placed the agreement on his desk. I will not fabricate another charge. Arthur slapped her. The blow turned her face toward the window. He placed the agreement back in her hands. You already did. Audrey locked herself inside an empty conference room and opened the case management system. The original plea had been created at 8:36. The author field identified Arthur's Chambers account. She printed the metadata and hid it inside another file. The courthouse printer retained its own copy of the job. Micah returned to his office after being cited for disorderly conduct. Derrick had seized his camera, but the recordings had already uploaded to a secure server. 2 deputies waited outside. You need to come with us, one said. Am I under arrest? We need to discuss unauthorized recording. My client was assaulted. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you receive without a warrant. One deputy shoved Micah against the wall, while the other searched his briefcase. That is attorney work product. We are securing courthouse property. A young assistant named Aiden Foster stood inside the office recording through the window. The deputy saw him and stepped away. Tell him to stop. Micah straightened his coat. Why? You were only securing property. They left with an empty camera and copies of documents already stored elsewhere. Aiden opened the door. Should I call the police? They are the police. Then who do we call? Someone outside the county. Micah sent the recordings, deleted docket entry, printer request, and photographs of his injuries to the State Defender Administration, Judicial Oversight Intake, and a federal public corruption address. The federal system returned a reference number. Micah did not understand its significance. Several blocks from the jail, the same number appeared on a secure tablet inside an unmarked vehicle. Simone Walsh read Micah's submission while federal prosecutor Daniel Price reviewed the vendor archive. They had enough evidence to show that the local access report had been altered. They still needed proof connecting Arthur directly to the change. The original investigation had focused on diverted evidence money and the private compliance company. The envelope in Imani's bag had been part of a monitored integrity test. It had not been designed as bait for a false arrest. Arthur and Derrick had created that crime themselves. Simone studied Kelly's medical photographs. We cannot allow another assault. Daniel looked toward the jail. We can move on the records in obstruction. For Arthur, I want his command or a cooperating witness. Then we watch until he orders another deletion or tries to force the plea. He has already done both. The record has not caught up yet. That evening, Arthur received a report on Imani's employment history. The vendor that had assigned her to the courthouse had been formed only months earlier. Its office was a rented mailbox. The official who approved the contract could not remember signing it. Arthur placed the report in front of Derrick. She is not who she claims to be. Federal? We do not know. Move her somewhere else. Where? A medical transfer, an emergency. Paperwork becomes confused. No. She knows too much. That is why she signs a confession. What if she refuses? Arthur looked at the proposed warrant against Micah. Everyone has a pressure point. The next morning, Audrey visited Imani at the jail. A guard remained outside the interview room. Audrey placed another plea agreement on the table. The state will dismiss the theft charge if you admit entering restricted files and interfering with court operations. The first offer said I stole money. The evidence changed. The envelope still exists. It may have chain of custody problems. So the evidence strong enough to jail me yesterday may disappear today. You should accept the opportunity. Who printed the first confession? Audrey said nothing. Arthur's chambers? You cannot prove that. The printer can. The visible history was cleared. That is not the same as the device log. Audrey leaned closer. Who trained you? Imani ignored the question. How many diverted deposits did you find? 7. That is not all of them. The words escaped before Audrey could stop them. You knew there were more. I knew there were complaints. You knew people continued paying after their cases closed. Defendants always say fees are wrong. They say officers lied. They say dates changed. And you stopped listening. I had hundreds of cases. You had hundreds of chances. Audrey stood. You do not understand what it is like to work beneath him. Imani looked at the bruise on Audrey's cheek. I have been under his control for 2 days. You helped him for 6 years. The door opened. Arthur entered with Derrick. Audrey gathered her files. I presented the offer. Did she accept? Arthur asked. No. She will. After Audrey left, Arthur sat across from Imani. Derrick covered the camera with his jacket. Arthur placed an unsigned warrant application for Micah on the table. Your attorney recorded a secure facility and distributed sealed material. He preserved evidence. He committed a felony. You want me to confess in exchange for leaving him alone. I want you to acknowledge what you did. You printed the confession before the search. You called the reporter before the envelope was found. You altered the access record and threatened my lawyer because the vendor preserved the original. Arthur slapped her. You believe intelligence protects you, he said. It does not. Records can be corrected. Witnesses can reconsider. Lawyers can be charged. By the time anyone outside Bellweather asks what happened, your signature will be on the confession. You covered the camera. You did not disable it. Derrick looked toward the jacket. Arthur laughed once. You think the room records audio? No. Then why mention it? Because both of you looked. Arthur's smile vanished. Imani had made them confirm that they did not understand the system. He pushed the confession toward her. Sign. No. Derrick forced a pen into her hand and bent her thumb backward. Imani kept her wrist rigid. The guard's shadow moved beneath the door. You will need him to say I signed voluntarily. Arthur glanced toward the entrance. Derrick released her thumb. Arthur ordered the guard to leave. Medical instructed me to remain nearby, the guard replied. Arthur photographed his name tag. You can explain your refusal during suspension. The guard walked away. Derrick grabbed Imani's hair. You are not leaving until you sign. The door opened again. Kelly entered with a medical cart. She is due for an examination. This interview is not finished, Arthur said. Kelly looked at Imani's swollen hand and fresh facial mark. It is now. If the throat injury worsens, the regional hospital receives an automatic notice. Arthur gathered the papers. Another system existed beyond his reach. This offer expires tonight. Imani flexed her injured thumb. You said that yesterday. At Micah's office, Aiden opened a package from Kelly's mother. It contained payment receipts belonging to Kelly's brother, Maurice Price. The compliance company had charged him for drug testing during 3 months when he was already in jail. The account number matched one of the transfers Imani had marked. Another package arrived from Tamika Green. 11 years earlier, Tamika had been accused of removing cash from a courthouse payment box. Arthur had prosecuted the case before becoming a judge. When she refused to confess, he described her silence as evidence that she lacked remorse. Her conviction had ended her nursing career. The file contained no original camera footage, no complete deposit ledger, and no record identifying who first reported the money missing. Micah called Audrey. "What do you know about Tamika Green?" Silence answered him. "You remember the case?" "Yes." "The missing money was connected to the same compliance company. I cannot discuss a sealed file." "Who sealed it?" "Arthur." "When?" "2 weeks after Imani requested the transfer ledgers." Micah looked at Tamika's documents. "Arthur did not frame Imani only because she found 7 deposits." Audrey said nothing. "He framed her because she found the method he used before." The call ended. Arthur had not invented the strategy for Imani. He had repeated it. After dark, Jasper returned to the courthouse. His face was bruised from Derrick's punch. Heather waited in the archive room. "You should not have come back." "Neither should you." Jasper removed the real storage device from his car key. "You gave Arthur a fake," Heather said. "You destroyed a fake." "What is on that one?" "The original access table. Every edit, every login." "You recorded yourself changing the record." "I also recorded who ordered it." The server room microphone had captured Arthur standing beside Jasper. Heather looked toward the locked files. "I changed the transfer dates. I deleted Micah's motion. I tried to destroy the ledger." "Are the pages gone?" Heather opened a bottom drawer. The damaged pages lay beneath blank court forms. "I stopped." "Because you knew another copy existed." "Yes." "That is not the same as doing the right thing." "I know." Jasper inserted the storage device and began uploading its contents to the vendor's preserved archive. The progress bar passed halfway. A key turned in the outer door. Derrick entered. Heather closed the drawer. Jasper pulled the device free, but the upload window remained visible. Derrick struck him before either could speak. Jasper fell across the desk. Derrick grabbed the device and crushed it beneath his boot. Heather moved toward the door. He threw her into a filing cabinet. "You helped him." "I cannot erase a vendor archive." Derrick pulled Jasper upright and punched him in the ribs. The workstation chimed. "Transfer complete." Jasper looked at the screen and laughed through the pain. "You were 6 seconds late." Derrick ripped the monitor from the desk and smashed it against the floor. The upload remained complete. At 1:20 a.m., Simone received the archive. It contained the untouched access table, Jasper's alterations, and Arthur's recorded instruction. Derrick's master badge had entered the evidence corridor at 8:31. Imani's temporary credential had never opened it. Daniel played the server room audio. "Change the badge number. Print what we need. She should appear to have entered before 8:40. Arthur's voice was clear. "That gives us the judge," Daniel said. "Prepare the warrants. We need authorization from a duty judge. Use the neighboring federal district contact. No one in Bellweather sees the affidavit." Arthur had scheduled a closed plea hearing for 10 m. Simone checked the operation clock. "We execute at 9:55. The next morning, Arthur excluded the public from the courtroom. He barred phones, replaced the regular deputy, and placed Derrick beside Imani. Heather sat at the clerk's station with bruises hidden beneath her sleeves. Jasper was absent. Arthur claimed that he had resigned overnight. Audrey stood at the prosecution table. Micah entered carrying no briefcase. Derrick searched him anyway. "Where is your camera?" "Where your warrant cannot reach it." Arthur entered at 10 m. "The purpose of this proceeding is to resolve the pending charges before further damage is done to the integrity of the court." Micah stood. "The defense objects to a closed hearing, your continued involvement, and any plea while my client is injured and under coercion." Arthur ignored him. "The defendant will admit unauthorized access, interference with records, and possession of evidence removed from a secured area." Imani looked at Audrey. "Are you presenting that agreement?" Audrey held the folder closed. Arthur answered for her. The state is. Did you verify the printer history? Audrey's throat moved. Arthur turned toward her. Present the plea. She remained still. Derrick leaned toward Imani. Make this easy. My client will not plead, Micah said. Arthur looked down from the bench. Your client no longer has the luxury of your advice. A warrant has been prepared charging you with interference and unlawful dissemination of sealed material. Signed by whom? It will be signed today. By you? Arthur's expression hardened. You are threatening defense counsel to force a plea from a woman you helped arrest. I am protecting this institution. From its own records? Arthur struck the bench. Derrick grabbed Micah's arm. Imani rose. Let him go. Sit down, Arthur ordered. No. The word was calm. Arthur stepped down from the bench. You seem to believe someone is coming for you. Heather looked at the clock. 10:03. No one had entered. Arthur smiled. The vendor archive will be declared unreliable. Jasper has disappeared. Your lawyer will be charged. The clerk will correct the docket, and Miss Bennett will certify the plea. Audrey closed her eyes. Whatever agency you contacted will receive a confession bearing your signature, Arthur continued. You came here believing a courthouse was a collection of records. He approached Imani. It is a collection of people. People can be pressured. People can be replaced. He placed the agreement in front of her. Sign. Imani looked at the clock. 10:05. Arthur followed her gaze. No one is coming. The courtroom doors opened. 4 federal agents entered first. 2 moved toward the clerk station. Another secured the private exit. Daniel Price followed with federal search warrants. Simone Walsh walked down the center aisle. Derrick released Micah and reached toward his holster. Do not touch that weapon, an agent ordered. His hands stopped. Arthur remained in front of Imani. This is a closed judicial proceeding. Simone looked past him. Supervisory Special Agent Parker, are you injured? Micah turned toward Imani. Audrey lowered the folder. Heather covered her mouth. Derrick's hand dropped away from his weapon. Imani stood with the waist chain still around her. Yes. Remove her restraints, Simone ordered. Arthur stepped between them. You have no authority to interrupt my court. Daniel offered him the warrant packet. This courthouse is the subject of authorized federal searches. The locations include your chambers, the clerk's archive, information services, and Chief Coleman's vehicle. Derrick blocked Simone's path. She is a state prisoner. She is an FBI supervisory special agent assigned to an authorized public corruption investigation. The words struck the courtroom one at a time. Derrick looked at Imani as though he were seeing another person. You are lying. Imani lifted her cuffed hands. You searched the wrong pocket. An agent reached for the restraint key. Derrick grabbed Imani and pulled her against him. His other hand moved toward his holster. Federal agents raised their weapons. Release her. Derrick attempted to turn her into a shield. Imani trapped his wrist between her cuffed hands, stepped across his stance, and rotated beneath his elbow. Derrick struck the floor on one knee. His weapon remained holstered. 2 agents forced him face down. Micah stared. The woman who had appeared trapped for 2 days had ended the struggle in seconds. Imani looked at Arthur. His face had gone pale, but his voice remained sharp. This is entrapment. No one asked you to plant evidence. You introduced false money into my courthouse. The envelope was part of a controlled integrity test in an existing investigation. Its serial numbers, seal placement, fibers, weight, and storage position were documented before Derrick removed it. Arthur looked toward the clear evidence bag. The original seal was upright, Imani continued. Derrick reopened the envelope and replaced the tape backward. I never opened it, Derrick said from the floor. Simone displayed a photograph. A trace filament from the inner flap was recovered from the floor mat of your county vehicle. Derrick stopped struggling. Daniel placed a certified copy of the vendor archive on the counsel table. Chief Coleman's master credential opened the evidence corridor at 8:31. Agent Parker's badge never entered it. Micah looked at Imani. You knew the report was false. I knew it had been altered. I needed the original to identify who changed it. Arthur pointed toward Jasper's empty seat. A disgruntled employee created those records. Simone played the server recording. Arthur's voice filled the courtroom. Change the badge number. Print what we need. No one spoke when the audio ended. Jasper appeared in the doorway beside a federal agent. The server recorded you, he said. Arthur turned toward Audrey. Present the plea. She removed a folded page from her file. It was not the agreement. The first plea was created at 8:36 from your Chambers account, Audrey said, 17 minutes before the envelope was found. You do not understand that record. I understand what you told me. You said an arrest involving stolen evidence would occur and ordered me to prepare the agreement. You are protecting yourself. I am admitting what I did. She placed the printer metadata beside the warrants. Arthur looked around the courtroom. Derrick was handcuffed. Heather had lifted her hands away from the keyboard. Jasper stood beside federal agents. Audrey had crossed the aisle. The people he controlled were becoming witnesses. You built this, he told Imani. I documented it. You entered my courthouse intending to destroy me. I entered to trace seized money that disappeared after defendants paid it. You created an opportunity and waited for a mistake. A mistake is an incorrect date. You ordered evidence planted. You altered logs, threatened counsel, erased filings, assaulted employees, and tried to force a confession. She looked at the unsigned plea. That was not one mistake. Simone removed Imani's waist chain. The cuffs fell away, leaving dark marks around her wrists. Arthur lifted his chin. You cannot arrest a judge for judicial decisions. Daniel answered, the investigation concerns conduct outside any legitimate judicial function, including directing evidence planting, falsifying records, obstructing a federal matter, and participating in an unlawful detention. I never touched the envelope. You did not need to. Federal agents blocked the private door. Arthur was not dragged from the courtroom. His attorneys were allowed to arrange his surrender at the federal courthouse later that afternoon. Agents remained with him while the searches were conducted. It was less dramatic than seeing him pulled away in chains. It was also how power often met accountability. Slowly, formally, and with every protection still available. Derrick received no such courtesy. As agents lifted him from the floor, he claimed he had followed court security orders. You wrote several conflicting accounts, Imani said. They made me. You struck restrained people when no one ordered you to. Allen entered behind the federal team. His split lip had been photographed. He handed Simone a statement describing the stairwell assault, the attack inside the van, and Derrick's attempt to force him to change his memory. Derrick stopped speaking. The federal searches continued through the day. Arthur's computer contained draft affidavits created before the events they described, earlier versions of Imani's confession, the proposed warrant against Micah, and a list of courthouse employees marked reliable, uncertain, or replaceable. Heather opened the bottom drawer and surrendered the damaged ledger pages. I removed them, she said. I began destroying them. Her decision to stop did not erase her first decision. In Derrick's vehicle, agents found replacement evidence tape, a restricted corridor key, notes describing the location of Imani's bag, and a media contact sheet. Beneath the driver's seat was a torn piece of the original seal. Jasper surrendered the altered reports and maintenance logs. His cooperation preserved the evidence, but it did not make his earlier actions lawful. Audrey turned over the printer metadata, internal messages, and 6 years of notes documenting Arthur's pressure on charging decisions. The notes were not evidence of heroism. They showed how long she had recognized the danger and chosen her career instead. Kelly's photographs remained on the regional medical server. The jail guard confirmed that Arthur ordered him away before Derrick forced the pen into Imani's hand. Micah's courthouse camera was eventually returned with its files erased. The secure copy at his office had already reached investigators. By late afternoon, the false charges against Imani had not automatically disappeared. An independent state prosecutor still had to review the file and formally dismiss them. She waited in a courthouse conference room. Micah sat across from her. For several minutes, neither spoke. Finally, he placed the false access report on the table. Supervisory Special Agent Parker. Micah, you let me believe you were a contractor. That was the cover. You allowed me to walk into a courtroom where a judge ordered his bailiff to attack me. I did not know Arthur would target you. You knew he was dangerous. Yes. You knew the original archive had been preserved. Yes. You knew federal agents were nearby. Not at every moment. Micah laughed without humor. Is that distinction supposed to help? No. Imani looked at the bruise near his temple. If we had intervened immediately, Derrick would have claimed he acted alone. Heather would have called the deletion an error. Jasper would have repaired the report. Audrey would have said she relied on officers. And what would I have said? That you requested the original record before you knew who I was. You used me. I relied on you. That is a careful answer. It is the honest one. Micah stood. Did you know they would assault me? No. Would the operation have continued if you had? Imani did not answer quickly enough. The people around you did not choose to become part of your operation, he said. No. Her agreement stopped him near the door. The investigation protected evidence better than it protected you. I cannot call that fair. Micah placed Tamika Green's old transcript on the table. Then do not let the government turn this into a story about one heroic agent defeating one corrupt judge. Imani read the marked sentence. The court finds the defendant's silence evidence of guilt. Arthur had spoken those words 11 years earlier. Tamika's payment record carried the same compliance account number Imani had traced. The system hurt people before you arrived, Micah said. I know. Then prove it. Arthur entered the federal courthouse that afternoon with 2 defense attorneys. At his initial appearance the following morning, prosecutors described evidence planting, obstruction, false records, and civil rights violations. His lawyers emphasized his community ties and argued that he posed no flight risk. Arthur was released on secured bond with travel restrictions and an order preventing him from contacting courthouse employees or accessing county systems. People watching the news called it special treatment. Imani called it the beginning of a long case. Derrick appeared separately. Prosecutors presented the medical photographs, Allen's statement, the vehicle evidence, and his conflicting reports. He also received bond, but under electronic monitoring and strict no-contact conditions. Heather was not arrested immediately. She spent hours in interviews, returned with counsel, and later entered cooperation discussions. Weeks afterward, prosecutors charged her with falsifying records and attempting to destroy evidence. Jasper admitted altering the badge entry. Prosecutors promised only that his cooperation would be reported accurately. Audrey was placed on administrative leave. Her professional discipline investigation lasted more than a year. She argued that Arthur had coerced her. Former defendants argued that she had still stood in court and asked judges to imprison them. Both were true. 6 months after Imani's arrest, a federal grand jury indicted Arthur, Derrick, Heather, and 2 executives from the compliance company. The indictment did not include every allegation made by every former defendant. Some records were missing. Some witnesses could no longer be located. Several files have been altered too many times to reconstruct safely. The charges focused on conduct prosecutors could prove. Arthur's attorneys challenged the searches, the controlled envelope, the vendor archive, and Imani's undercover role. They argued that federal investigators had created the situation. The government answered with Arthur's recorded command, Change the badge number. No one had instructed him to say it. The central evidence survived the pretrial challenges. The judicial discipline process moved separately. Arthur was suspended from active duties. Months later, he resigned rather than face a public removal hearing. His resignation did not end the criminal case. Derrick's deputies began cooperating. Allen testified first. The second transport deputy changed his account after investigators located a driver who had recorded the open van from the road. The video did not capture every blow, but it showed Derrick standing over Allen while Imani remained chained to the bench. Kelly provided the medical records. Micah provided the uploaded recordings. Jasper authenticated the server logs. Heather surrendered the damaged ledgers. Audrey provided the printer history. Arthur had controlled each person separately. The case formed when they stopped being separate. Tamika Green's conviction did not disappear when Imani read her transcript. Micah filed a formal motion for review. The county opposed it, arguing that too much time had passed and the original evidence could not be reconstructed. Then federal agents recovered one of Arthur's old prosecution boxes. Inside was a copy of the missing payment ledger. The money Tamika had been accused of stealing had been transferred to the compliance company 2 days before she entered the building. Her conviction was vacated 11 months after Imani's arrest. The state declined to retry her. Reporters asked whether she felt vindicated. Tamika held up the nursing license she had lost. Vindication does not return 11 years. The clip traveled farther than Imani's booking photograph. Other defendants came forward. Some had paid fees after their cases ended. Some had probation extended when payments vanished. Others had been jailed on warrants carrying dates that did not match the court calendar. Not every allegation was true. That did not make the true ones less urgent. A review team opened hundreds of files. Several orders were vacated. Many remained unresolved because the underlying records had been destroyed. Civil attorneys filed claims against the county, Derrick, the compliance company, and other officials. Some claims involving Arthur's courtroom rulings were dismissed because of judicial immunity. Claims tied to operational conduct outside legitimate judicial acts continued. The distinction frustrated people who wanted one decision to repair everything. The law moved more slowly than the harm. 18 months after the frame, Audrey accepted a professional suspension. She admitted presenting claims she had not verified, failing to disclose evidence, and allowing Arthur's pressure to influence her decisions. She was not charged in the central conspiracy. Some called that mercy. Others called it the price of cooperation. Jasper pleaded guilty to a records offense. The court considered both his alteration of the badge log and his later preservation of the archive. He received probation, community service, and a permanent ban from government information systems work. Heather pleaded guilty to obstruction and falsification. Her sentence included time in custody. Saving the damaged pages helped investigators, but those pages had been damaged because she first attempted to destroy them. Derrick rejected an early plea. At trial, he claimed that Arthur had manipulated him. Prosecutors presented the booking room threat, Micah's recording, Kelly's photographs, Allen's testimony, and the roadside video. The jury convicted him on multiple counts. Arthur's case took longer. His lawyers delayed, appealed, narrowed, and challenged. Several allegations involving older defendants could not be presented because the records were incomplete. The trial focused on the strongest documented acts: the planted envelope, the false access report, the confession created before the search, the order to change the badge number, the threats against Micah, the attempt to destroy the vendor archive. Arthur took the stand against his attorney's advice. He described Imani as an aggressive federal operative who had entered his courthouse to provoke him. The prosecutor approached the witness stand. "Did Agent Parker ask you to identify the pocket Derrick should search?" "No." "Did she ask you to prepare her confession before the envelope was found?" "No." "Did she ask you to change the access record?" "No." "Did she ask you to threaten her attorney?" "No." Then which of those decisions belonged to her? Arthur looked toward the jury. For the first time in his career, silence did not belong to a defendant he controlled. It belonged to him. The jury convicted Arthur on the central frame and obstruction charges. It did not convict him on every financial count. 2 allegations ended without a unanimous verdict. The outcome separated what investigators believed from what prosecutors could prove. At sentencing, former defendants filled the courtroom. Not all were permitted to speak. The federal judge refused to punish Arthur for uncharged conduct, but considered his abuse of office, the deliberate creation of false guilt, and the injuries caused by his orders. Arthur received a substantial federal prison sentence. His appeal remained pending nearly 2 years after the morning Derrick opened Imani's bag. When Imani returned to Bellweather County, the courthouse had replaced its security contractor. The compliance company no longer operated. Missing docket entries, including Micah's first preservation motion, had been restored. The marble corridor looked unchanged. Imani stopped near the wall where Derrick had pressed her face beneath the fluorescent light. Micah approached carrying 2 file boxes. "You are late." Federal habit. "You told me punctuality was part of the cover." It was. Their relationship had not returned to what it had been before the reveal. Trust damaged during a lawful operation was still damaged. But Micah had continued sending cases. "What is in the boxes?" Imani asked. People who were told their records no longer existed. "How many?" 23. "You said 2. I was being optimistic." They carried the files into the restored archive room. Tamika sat at a table reviewing receipts with Kelly. Alan had left law enforcement, but had come to identify transport records. Jasper had provided a written guide explaining how the old system recorded revisions. No one called Imani the FBI's secret weapon. They called her when a date moved, when a signature appeared too clean, when a docket number skipped, or when someone in authority insisted that a missing record had never existed. Her greatest skill had never been forcing corrupt officials to confess. It was finding the record they forgot they created. Near the end of the day, Micah placed a thin transcript on top of her box. This came from another county. The hearing had taken place 13 years earlier, before Arthur became a judge in Bellweather. He had served as a special prosecutor. One sentence was marked in blue. The court finds the defendant's refusal to answer consistent with consciousness of guilt. Beneath it, someone had written 4 words. Same contractor, different courthouse. The payment ledger carried the same account number. Arthur had been convicted. Derrick had been exposed. But someone had built the system before Arthur learned how to use it. Imani opened a new evidence index. "You are starting another file," Micah said. "The first transfer happened before Arthur had authority to approve it." "So he was not the architect?" "No." "Do we know who was?" "Not yet." Outside the archive, the courthouse clock reached 6 p.m. Employees shut down their computers. The room darkened until only the lamp above Imani's table remained. She entered the first date, then the second. The records were 13 years apart, but the account number was identical. Power could alter a statement, seal a hearing, frighten a witness, and bury a file. But every lie still required someone to record it. Arthur Whitmore lost his office, his authority, and his freedom. Derrick Coleman was convicted, the false case collapsed, and the courthouse that once protected them became the place where their own records exposed them. But Imani Parker should never have needed an FBI title, a preserved server, federal agents, or hidden recordings to be treated like a human being. She should not have needed power before anyone cared that she had been beaten, silenced, and framed. And what about the people who do not have that title, that badge, that camera, or that power? What happens when the victim is alone, the record disappears, and everyone with authority decides that silence is safer? So ask yourself this: if you had been inside that courthouse, would you have challenged the lie before you knew who Imani was? Share your answer in the comments. Like this video, Send it to someone who believes accountability still matters. Subscribe and hit the bell for more stories where abuse of power does not get the final word. Every story on this channel is about one thing: the moment truth finally catches up, and it always does.